They were trying to make an example of him, and that really seems to subvert the idea of justice, what we'd hope for.
Hi, I'm Zach Weissmueller with Reason TV. I'm here at the Electronic Frontier Foundation headquarters in San Francisco with Parker Higgins, internet activist and friend of the late programmer and activist Aaron Swartz. Parker, thank you very much for talking to us. Aaron Swartz, who sadly committed suicide last week, contributed a lot to the culture and the substance of the internet. Could you just describe what you see as some of his bigger contributions?
Sure. Well, when he was just 14, he was a co-author on a specification called RSS, which is used on almost every major website around the internet. And it just developed from there. He played an integral role in the launch of Creative Commons licenses, the free copyright licenses that are used on Wikipedia and on hundreds of millions of different works around the web. Later, he was working, even though he was only 26 when last week when he died. He'd been working for a decade and a half, and he had done a lot of really important activism. He founded a group called Demand Progress, which was really one of the groups at the center of protesting the SOPA proposal and getting that stopped.
Swartz ran into some serious legal trouble when he downloaded about 4 million articles from the academic journal site JSTOR from the MIT, on the MIT network. The federal government charged him. He was facing up to 35 years in prison, $1 million. What do you think about how that prosecution against him was handled?
I think that there's pretty clear evidence that it was overbroad and it was taking advantage of a law that is written too vague and with too harsh of penalties. And it looks as if, we've seen this with other especially computer developers, like they were trying to make an example of him.
Swartz's father has actually said that he thinks that the federal government is in part responsible for his son's suicide. Do you think that's a fair statement?
It's hard to get into the head of someone who has made the decision to kill himself, and we can't know. Even if that's not the case, they were responsible for causing him a lot of undue stress and really threatening to ruin his life. And that's as big a problem last week as it is this week. The idea that an agent of the federal government would be able to pick out a person and threaten to ruin their life is not the kind of thing that we hope for in a justice system.
You said earlier that you think that they were making an example of him. Why would they choose him as an example, and what's the message that you think was trying to be communicated there?
Before this incident with JSTOR, he had downloaded many files from a system called Pacer, which holds court records, and he had made those files, which are in the public domain and generated with public money. He had made them available free on another site, and the FBI investigated that and couldn't find anything to charge him with. So there are some people who think that these JSTOR charges being especially harsh were the result of a vendetta there.
The U.S. attorney who was in charge of prosecuting him actually said, I'm going to read her statement real quick, "Stealing is stealing, whether you use a computer command or a crowbar, and whether you take documents, data, or dollars. It is equally harmful to the victim, whether you sell what you have stolen or give it away." Does she have a point there? I mean, why doesn't stealing...
No, that's absolutely... It's just an example of how wrong-headed this prosecution was. The purported victim, JSTOR, first off, they never lost anything. If stealing is stealing and it's the same with data or dollars, then you'd expect, when you steal dollars from somebody, they don't have those dollars. JSTOR never lost anything.
And it's also worth mentioning that JSTOR actually dropped their civil charge. Right. They didn't want to pursue a civil case against him, so it really was the federal government pushing this, right?
Yes, and And so it's really, that's a false comparison, and it's that kind of thing that that really makes these computer laws so out of whack that they reflect a reality that just doesn't exist.
What he did seem like it was some sort of political act in a way. What was driving him when he did that, and what did he stand for?
He was a longtime committed activist in the name of free access to information, and I believe that Aaron would agree with the sentiment that your access to the collective knowledge shouldn't be contingent upon you attending a university that has a JSTOR subscription, or whether you can afford to buy these articles one by one. That in fact that access to knowledge should be available for everybody, regardless of their status.
Where do you fall on that question? Do you think that every document, all knowledge should just be out there for free for public consumption?
So, I mean, if you're asking me personally, I think that our current copyright laws are not based on a sane system of providing incentives that you could imagine. A government-granted monopoly through copyright may be worthwhile for incentivizing certain kinds of creation, but the idea that it should be life plus 70 years, and that the rights holders should be able to go after really clear, fair uses and hound them seems like it's not an ideal system.
What should we learn from all this? What big changes would you like to see moving forward?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, we'd like to see reform to the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, and we've already seen Rep. Zoe Lofgren in California has proposed some changes. In some areas, they don't go far enough, but these changes are long overdue and extremely important. We'd also, because one of Aaron's causes that he believed in so deeply was open access, we'd like to see more work done in the area of universities and academics making their works available on a free access basis. And there's already been a decade of work in that arena, but hopefully we can take some of the energy that's really been expressed in the last few days and channel that towards improving the open access world.
Parker Higgins, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Zach.
For Reason TV, I'm Zach Weissmueller.